Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Leslie, for that warm introduction. As stated, my name is Omari Wooden, Senior Foreign Trade Advisor here at the U.S. Census Bureau. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Put a thumbs up or just, okay, good. I see one lady nodding her head, so okay, that's good. But again, thank you for the warm introduction. I'm also here today with a colleague, Katrina Rosen. She's one of the specialists in our data dissemination branch. And today we're actually going to be talking about foreign trade. We're going to be talking about going global, and then we're ultimately going to be providing to you some of the resources that we here at the U.S. government can provide to local government agencies, to local businesses, again, related to foreign trade, related to export regulations, and then compliance. So that is the goal of today's presentation, is to actually develop a roadmap for exporting success. A lot of times when we do outreach and we do training around the country, a lot of times companies or individuals will ask us, well, what does the U.S. Census Bureau have to do with exports? Don't you guys just count people? And, you know, for this seminar, are we counting the number of people that we see on the webcam to go into our, you know, counting statistics? Well, we do a lot more here the other 9.5 years other than just counting people. And as a result, we're ultimately responsible for the monthly trade figures that are released based on all products that are leaving, ultimately products and services that leave the United States. So when you hear the trade balance is, or you hear the trade deficit is, that's information that is being published and issued by the U.S. Census Bureau. Another key that we're going to be discussing today, again, is some of the resources that we can actually provide and that we do provide to U.S. businesses to help them expand their businesses abroad. And we'll actually talk about this more, how we release a monthly, the monthly trade figures, how we actually capture information on 20,000 different products, physical products that actually leave the United States. All the goods that actually leave the United States, we release information, detailed information that on a monthly basis. We release this information about 30 days after the statistical month. So, for example, with the previous shutdown we just went through, we just released our August data in October. And when you're talking about the government, that's as close to real time as possible. So this information that we provide to U.S. businesses, to other governments, to U.S. resources, to state associations, to trade associations, is again as close to real time as possible, because what it does is it can let companies know, okay, can I be competitive in a foreign market? We release information based on classification codes. So again, all the different products that leave out of the United States have classification codes, and we're going to be talking about that through our presentation today. And what this information can shed a light on is for U.S. businesses to say, hey, I manufacture tables, or I manufacture webcams. I'm considering expanding my market abroad to overseas, and I'd like to ship to, let's say, India. Well, what our data can actually show companies is India a viable market for you? Is India a market which is already saturated with your particular product? So the information that we provide that we'll actually, again, show today is very helpful for U.S. businesses. We also provide information on state exports. So if you want to know what's coming out of Montana, we can provide that information as well, too. So we have a wealth of information that we're going to be providing to you today. And again, just also showing you some of the resources that we have to make things available for you all. Because again, just based on population and statistics, 95% of customers live outside of the United States. So a lot of times companies are looking to expand their business, and to expand, they'll say, okay, I may go into Canada, I may go into Mexico, but again, 95% of the world's population lives outside of the United States. So it's a great opportunity to expand, and again, that's what we'll be talking about during this presentation. As I just stated, we are the official source for U.S. export and import statistics, and we are responsible for issuing regulations governing the reporting of all export shipments from the United States. So one of the things that's very interesting is, again, we are the official source. A lot of times people will say, oh, well, I'll get this trade figures from ITA, International Trade Administration, or I'll get this information from the Peers Report. But we are the actual official source for the export and import trade statistics, because we are actually capturing that information directly from the U.S. companies as they are ultimately reporting to us. A lot of these other sources, they're receiving information through us. They're also receiving information through certain public records, and then they're creating certain types of programs and approximation, but we are ultimately the official source as we're directly receiving this information from U.S. business. So for the next part of the presentation, I just want to give you all a quiz. I actually turned off the webcam, so I can't really see if you guys have your hands up or not. But here's a question. Last year, what was the dollar value in total of goods and services that were exported from the United States? So in a year's time, how much did we actually export? Did we export $500 million? Did we export $1 billion? Did we export $500 billion of goods and services for the entire year?
20 billion.
See?
500.
I'm trying to pull up the webcam, but I don't want to end up messing up, so I can't see what you guys are doing.
They're picking all of the above.
Okay. Even though all of the above is not an option, let's actually see what the actual answer for that is. We actually exported, so actually even though it's not all of the above, it should actually be D, not listed. The U.S. exported $2.2 trillion in goods and services to 240 markets worldwide last year. Now, again, you take a view of that number and say, wow, okay, that's a huge, gigantic number. It's more than the $500 billion that I had listed on the previous slide. But again, we talk so much about how the U.S. is importing from China and all of what we're bringing into China. We are also a one of the major exporters of products, of goods and services around the world. Again, so when we talk about made in the USA, yes, that still does matter, because we can see that last year we exported $2.2 trillion of goods and services around the country, around the world, from the United States. And then another thing that we also find interesting too is when we look at other reports that we issue here from the U.S. Census Bureau, only 3 to 4% of U.S. businesses are actually exporting. Of all the hundreds of thousands of businesses that exist in the United States, only 3 to 4% of those businesses are actually exporting abroad. So when you take a snapshot again of the $2.2 trillion of goods and services that were exported, only 3 to 4% of U.S. businesses are tapping into that giant pie. So again, while we are not a trade facilitation agency, we work very closely with a lot of other agencies. Again, we just want to enlighten companies to, again, the market that is available, to just the economy and just the money that is available when companies ultimately can go global. So again, this is always something that really blows a lot of people's minds. Number one, that Census is involved in exporting, but also just the volume or the value of all the products that we export from the United States. And then the next few slides, we're just going to talk about just some particular areas, exports to China. In 2012, the U.S. exported $110.5 billion in goods to China. And then in particular for your state, in 2012, Montana exported $106 million in goods to China. Between 2008 and 2012, Montana's exports to China grew almost 73%. Now, again, this information that we're pulling, that we're actually reporting to you, is information that we publish and that we have and we can actually capture that you can ultimately have access to. And Katrina is actually going to be discussing that with a software that we call USA Trade Online. So again, if you want to find out what's Montana doing, how are we being competitive with other states, how are we being competitive in our region in terms of exporting, that's information that we here at the U.S. Census Bureau can provide to you. Now, this next slide talks about exports to Chile. In 2012, the U.S. exported $18.8 billion in goods to Chile. In particular, in Montana, in 2002, we exported $11.3 million in goods to Chile. And again, you'll see between 2008 and 2012, exports to Chile from Montana grew 122%. So again, one of the things that our data will show is how areas are expanding, how areas are growing, and then you can find out how these particular areas are growing from your particular state. So again, a lot of information that we have to provide to you all. And at this point, I'm going to turn the seminar and the presentation over to Katrina Rosen, who's going to talk about our commodity classification, the data, and then actually show you some of our resources available online.
All right, thanks, Omari. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Katrina Rosen, and I work in the Data Dissemination Branch of the Foreign Trade Division. My office is in charge of disseminating data, which includes the information found in the U.S. International Trade in Goods and Services, also known as the FT 900, and also our internet products such as USA Trade Online, as Omari briefly mentioned. These are all really great tools which can help us be more knowledgeable about what's going on in our economy and help make decisions in our export process. Before we dive right into all of our different products and services that we offer at the Census Bureau, I want to quickly go over some key information that will make finding and analyzing your data much easier. The first key piece of information to remember about our data is that it's organized into different commodity classifications. The first and most commonly used is the Harmonized System, or HS classification. If you're looking for export information, you would be looking for something called a Schedule B. A Schedule B number is a 10-digit number used in the United States to classify physical goods for export to another country. There's a number for every product in the Schedule B codes, from paper clips to airplanes. So these are what we use at the Census Bureau to publish our U.S. export statistics. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. So now if you're looking for import information, we would use the Classification Harmonized Tariff Schedule, or HTS. This is what we use to classify goods coming in the U.S. The next three classification systems that I'm going to quickly mention are broader than the Harmonized System. The first is the North American Industry Classification System, otherwise known as the NAICS. This classification system was developed by statistical agencies in the U.S. and is a production-oriented system rather than commodity-oriented like the HS system. Then we have the Standard International Trade Classification, the SITC system, which was created by the United Nations, mostly used for comparing statistics worldwide. And finally, we have the end-use codes, which are assigned by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. These are for U.S. exported and imported merchandise based on principal use rather than the physical characteristics of the merchandise. So now that you got your quick overview on how our data is classified, I'm going to tell you about our website, which is the key place to finding all the data you need. The web address is www.census.gov/trade. The site contains up-to-date data we release every month, as well as historical data. This also gives you information on signing up for various data products to suit your needs. So you heard me mention something earlier called the FT 900. This is what I was referring to, the U.S. International Trade in Goods and Services. This is a 23-page report that we produce every month. Rather than go through every single page of the report, I'll just give you a quick recap of what it is. This is the place to find the latest U.S. export and import statistics, both seasonal and non-seasonal. It also contains historical data for 2 years prior. This is also the place to find commodity-specific statistics by end-use categories, one of the categories I mentioned earlier, as well as selected country and area statistics. Finally, we also publish state trade data in this report for both manufactured and non-manufactured goods with current month and year-to-date values. As you can see, it's a lot of information, but don't worry, I'm going to show you some great places where this information is broken down to help you find what you need even easier. So in the Data Dissemination Branch, we try to help you understand and visualize the trade data. That's why we have included a selection of interactive graphs on our website. You can find graphs like U.S. trade and end-use and services, and top trading partners such as China, Mexico, Canada, and so on. We also include a graph of the month, which includes a graph of something in the data that we found interesting or wanted to highlight. This graph is our top trading partner graph for U.S. exports. The great thing about this graph is if you click on a piece of the pie chart, information for the specific country will open. So this is a sample of what the data would look like if you clicked on Canada. It would take you to our country trade data page. Besides the FT900, this is another great place to find data on the website. This area of the web has historical trade data going back as far as 1985. It can help identify data from individual countries, as well as look up trade data by country groupings such as Europe, Africa, or Asia. It also has the ability to look up NAICS data by country and vice versa. Data is available for both import and export, monthly and year-to-date. We also have data groupings by end use and SITC, those groupings that I was talking to you about before. This is an example of NAICS data by 6-digit for China. We can see here data is broken down by the 6-digit NAICS for exports, general imports, and consumption imports, another handy tool for our commodities. I also want to quickly mention where to find our state data. If you're interested in finding out what the top exports or imports are for a certain state, or top countries import-export with the state, this is the place to go. In this part of our website, you can find the top 25 commodities for each state by Schedule B, as well as the top 25 partner trading countries for each state. Here's a sample of the report for the state of Montana. It tells us the top export commodity is coal under HS code 270119, and the value, as well as percentage change, which actually is displayed on here over the past few years. It's a really handy, quick reference tool. So if you're still looking for other types of data, we also have other statistical releases on our website, such as the FT920, which highlights merchandise trade data. The 920 is the only place that you can get port data besides USA Trade Online. We also publish the U.S. Imports for Consumption of Steel report with preliminary data and the profile of U.S. importing and exporting companies. This is the report that's shown on the screen. It provides us with the percentage of companies trading internationally based on size and industry classification. We really have so much data available on our website. I could spend hours showing you all of our information. I highly recommend checking it out. But since I only have you for a short time, I'm going to show you two of my favorite and most commonly used tools. One is the Schedule B search engine. Do you remember me telling you that there were 9,000 codes for the Schedule B? This site makes finding your code a whole lot easier. The engine is designed to search the Schedule B commodity book for your specific code. Each 10-digit code represents something specific. You can access the site right on here on a foreign trade website. Looks something like this. So say, for example, we're an exporter and we're interested in finding trade data on, let's say, Christmas ornaments since the season's coming up. Let's walk through finding the code in the search engine. The search will look for whatever phrase is entered in the search engine. So let's type in Christmas ornament. And let me spell that right. Hit classify. All right. So the search engine is going to ask us questions to try to help us find the right code. In this example, it asks us to tell us more about the ornaments. Are they small objects of personal adornment, architecturally ornament, or are they decorative? Since we're looking for decorative Christmas ornaments, let's select decorative or ornamental article. The search engine is then going to give us some assumptions about the product. If we disagree with any of them, we can use the Modify button located on the right-hand side of the screen. Let's just scroll down and see the codes that it gave us. And voila, it took us to our Schedule B numbers. We can read the description and find the code that works for us. In this case, Christmas ornaments. There are two options here, Christmas ornaments of glass and Christmas ornaments other than glass. Let's say Christmas ornaments other than glass. So we would use Schedule B number 9505102000. It also tells us the unit of quantity, which in this case we don't need, but you'll see in other commodity codes, like artificial Christmas trees, there's a number when you would use for filing. All right, so this was an extremely short overview, but I just wanted to make sure I mentioned this tool to you as it's really handy. The other tool that I want to mention to you is USA Trade Online. It's our subscription-based online data service. This is a really great tool when you want to find detailed data on a specific commodity or you want to find historical data. The site sort of resembles a giant search engine with the data that is on our website, which can be easily located and customized. So you can look at data by country, district, state, and port, and by HS and NAICS classification systems. So let me do a really quick walkthrough of the site for you. First, let's go to USA Trade Online's homepage, usatrade.census.gov. I'm already logged into the site, so I'm just going to click on the link, click here to access the trade data. Or if you weren't signed in, you would hit the Login Now button. You'll also notice that there is a free trial button right below it where you can sign up for a 7-day free trial. You may have also noticed that there is a button to our Schedule B search engine, what we just went to, what I was talking about, as well as many other helpful links. All right, so once we click into the link, it's going to take us to the data source selection page. It's going to give us a couple options to choose from. The first one is the district level data. We have the option to create reports using import or export statistics. They include the standard report, trade by commodity, and country by commodity. This is the section you want to use if you're interested in analyzing 10-digit harmonized system data, the greatest level of commodity detail. Then in the next section, port level data, you can find imports and exports of ports. The data is not quite as detailed as the district data, as in this section the commodities only go up to the 6-digit level, but it can offer different measures such as vessel value and weight, as well as focusing on specific areas of the U.S. Then we have state data available in both harmonized system and NAICS-based classification systems. The origin of movement for export is where the goods began their journey to the port of export, not necessarily where the goods were produced. The state of destination for import is where the goods ultimately ended its journey. And finally, we have NAICS data, both imports and exports. By having both imports and exports on the same report, you can calculate the trade balance. Okay, so since we already found the commodity classification number for Christmas ornaments, let's look up some data for the product. To do this, we first want to click on the exports under its standard report. We want to see the highest level of detail in this example. So we're going to want to select the commodity that we want to view. You can select your commodity through the commodity selection screen. You can see it expand all the way to the 10-digit level. Or you can just use the search box and type your commodity code that you got from the Schedule B search engine or a keyword. I'm going to search for Christmas ornaments. Okay, as you can see, a few different codes showed up. Remember, we use the Schedule B search engine to find the exact one we need. However, this is a really helpful tool to find a code quickly, but it does have a limited database. To find your code, the word has to be present in the description, otherwise it won't show up as a search result. So let's select our option. We're going to select Christmas trees other than glass and show report, just to see what a standard report would look like. Okay, so you're probably wondering why there's some blank boxes in some of the fields. This means that there isn't data for the project or 0 was exported. So I'm going to sort my data now in a descending order. Just select this with the arrow pointing down. And this is going to arrange our data from largest to smallest, or vice versa, and also eliminates all the blank fields for us. So looking quickly at our report, it tells us so far this year through August, we've exported a value of $2.8 million worth of Christmas ornaments not made of glass. The data shows that we've also exported close to $400,000 worth of exports to the United Kingdom so far this year, which was the #1 country exports currently. Last year in 2012, there were 489,057, up from 245,465 in 2011. So this is just a really great tool to analyze areas over time quickly or see what the top area of imports and exports are. So that was just a really quick example of the standard report. But let's say I want to customize this data and analyze growth rates. Let's say top growth or changes from year to year. So this is really easy to do and a great comparison tool. To do this, we're going to just go and click on the time. In here, you can manually select years and months. You can select whatever month or year you want to see data for. However, I'm going to skip past this part to calculate the growth. I'm going to go over to the time series tab, and I'm going to uncheck annual because I'm interested in seeing in monthly data. and we're going to create a new time series set. Here we can customize certain options for our report. So it lets us create a title. Let's call this Year-to-Date Growth. Okay. Now we have the option of selecting monthly or annual. I'm going to select monthly since we want to see year-to-date growth. We're going to check year-to-date aggregations. And to keep it simple, we want to see year-to-date data from 2009 to 2013. So I'm going to enter 5 in here. In addition to the values, we also want to see growth rate. So we're going to select values and growth rates from the drop-down menus. You can see a couple options of things that you can do to customize your report. And we're going to select first and last periods just to keep the report clean. We're going to hit Create Time Series to save our option. And let's just click Show Report to see what it did. All right, we can see our data now. This is a really great tool because it shows the percentage differences over the years. If we scroll over, we can see that August 2009 to August 2013 year-to-date growth in percentage. Christmas tree ornaments have grown 26% over the past few years and 80.5% alone in the United Kingdom. So it's kind of a neat tool. It does the math calculations for you if you don't want to do it. You can also use this function anywhere in USA Trade Online to see any type of information. So let me switch gears a little bit. Let's say you want to know more about the top exports in Montana at the most detailed level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the main screen. This time I'm going to select state export data, origin of move-in, and I'm going to select the HS option. So we're going to see by default that all states over here is checked along with the states. I'm only interested in Montana, so I'm going to clear the dimension here, and I'm going to find Montana in the list. Again, I can either search for it in the list, I'm going to type it in here, select Montana. So now I'm going to go over to our commodities. We're going to pick which ones we want. Right now, all our commodities are selected at the 2-digit level. I'm going to clear all of these because I'm interested in finding out the highest level of detail, which would be at the 6-digit level. So I'm going to select all of these. This is going to arrange all of our 6-digit level commodities in there. All right, let's click Show Report and see what happens. All right, so again, we have the same thing. We're going to use our arrow, and we're going to drop down to arrange all of our commodities in order. It looks like coal is our top export so far this year, followed by copper oxides at 82.3 million. So we can go through the same process again, adjusting growth rates of states. Possibilities are really endless. At this point, I also want to mention that you have the option to save your report. The benefit of saving your report is that when we update our data every month, your report will automatically have the latest data set in it, so you don't have to issue a new report. Same thing when we revise our data every year, all your saved reports will get updated. So to do this, you would just go to File, Save Report As, you can name it whatever you want, and hit OK, and it'll save it in USA Trade Online. So the possibilities are really endless with the site. I'm only showing you a small portion of what USA Trade Online can really do. As I mentioned earlier, USA Trade Online is a subscription-based product. However, you can sign up for a 7-day free trial right here. It's on our homepage of our website. It also can be accessed for free at any federal depository library. If you do decide to sign up, the subscription costs $25 per week, $75 per month, and a year is $300. So now that you understand our data a little bit better and how you can use our data to find a new market, I'm going to pass it back over to Amari to tell you how to stay compliant when you're ready to export.
Thank you, Katrina. At this point, I'd like to pause. Are there any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. If there are any questions that come up throughout, please just jump in. We'll be able to hear you guys. So Katrina, again, discussed the data and how we can actually use this data and how you all can use this data. Again, it's a great tool for businesses, again, looking to decide how do they want to go abroad if they want to go abroad. That information, again, helps them make informed decisions, and that's the information that we provide to U.S. businesses. Because in many cases, as I stated, just to kind of bring it back, so let's say you're a manufacturer of Christmas ornaments. And you say, hey, you know what, I want to go into the United Kingdom. That's where I want to start selling these products. Well, what our data will show you is, okay, well, that's already a heavy market. That's already a saturated market of Christmas ornaments. So again, our data provides the information, obviously from a statistical perspective, but again, if you're looking to expand abroad and you have a particular product, you export lumber, coal, or whatever, you can find out, okay, where are the areas where I can ultimately be competitive? Where are the emerging markets, the emerging countries where, hey, this might be a new opportunity for me. So now the next few slides, we're going to talk about the basics of exporting compliance. We just talked about the Schedule B product classification. I'm not sure if I mentioned it at the beginning, but there are over 9,000 export classification codes and approximately 18,000 import classification codes that companies use to report either their exports or their imports. And then our search engine is actually on the Schedule B, the export side of the search engine. I'll also talk about the foreign trade regulations, also known as the FTR. I'll talk about reporting your export information in a system which we jointly have with Customs, which is called the Automated Export System. And then I'll talk briefly about the role of a freight forwarder and how they can help facilitate you to exporting abroad. So again, when we talk about the foreign trade regulations, which are found under Title 15 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 30, so here we have all of this information. We have all of this data. U.S. companies are required to report this information to us. And because it is a requirement that they have to report this information to us, we also are required to issue the regulations that specify reporting requirements, specify the value to actually require this information. Because one of the things I don't think we mentioned is, as we release this information on a monthly basis, it is a major economic indicator that the U.S. government uses to determine the health and economy of the United States. So as a result, we have regulations that, again, set forth the requirements, the rules and regulations for, as the slide shows here, for the information that has to be reported in the system. It also has the definition of all the different terms, all the different products. What is a U.S. exporter? How do we define that? How do we define a shipment? How do we define value? What do we expect you as U.S. businesses to report as value? All that information is defined in the foreign trade regulations. And because also, too, we work so very closely with penalty agencies and enforcement agencies such as Customs and Border Protection, Bureau of Industry and Security, there are also penalty provisions which are involved in violating these regulations. So one of the things, too, and I'll actually discuss this later on when we talk about training and some of the outreach and resources that we provide, is this information, again, so all 300,000 businesses that are currently exporting, all of them have to adhere to these actual export regulations. And if companies are not aware of them, that's, again, where we provide outreach, we provide training. Again, Leslie had mentioned earlier that I had spoken at a conference, because that's one of the main goals from the Foreign Trade Division, is to provide information to you all in the trade community and to also provide this information to state resources as well. Again, it talks about the reporting requirements based on the mode of transportation. So how the goods are leaving the United States will determine how you have to report this information. And then there are some situations where there are exemptions or exclusions. There are certain types of export transactions that you don't have to report. The largest one is if you're exporting goods out of the United States that are under $2,500 per that classification number. So we don't capture everything. We actually have programmers here and math stats here that actually will run an estimate of how many low-value goods are actually leaving the United States. So if you have goods, if you're exporting something valued at $100, do I have to adhere to these foreign trade regulations? Well, no, you don't have to, because we don't require you to report information under $2,500. But again, because we work so closely with other agencies, State Department, Office of Foreign Assets Control, If those are controlled items that you're exporting, then you would fall into the requirements of reporting. So, for example, if you're exporting bullets and their value, let's say, I don't know how much a bullet will run you, but let's say you're exporting $10 worth of bullets. Well, bullets are considered controlled items and they're subject to certain requirements, so you would have to report that. Well, let's say one of your hobbies is, bazooka shooting, and you want to just, export a bazooka, and I don't know how much bazookas cost, but that would be considered a controlled item, which you would then have to report. So again, other useful information that's found in our regulations, we have a sample power of attorney and a written authorization, and then we even have a concordance that just shows you the difference between the existing regulations and the previous regulations if you are more comfortable with that. So we have a lot of useful information in our regulations. Next up, we're talking about the automated export system. So not only do we issue the data, the monthly trade figures, this detailed information for you to know about different products that are leaving the United States, not only do we issue the actual foreign trade regulations which govern how this information has to be reported, what are your requirements as a U.S. exporter, as a forwarder, as a carrier. We also work very closely with Customs, and we developed what is called the automated export system. The automated export system is a cross-agency collaboration between Census, Customs and Border Protection, and other federal agencies to allow exports to be reported to the U.S. government electronically. So just to show the impact of that, AES was developed back in 1994, and it became mandatory in 2008. So let's say early 2000, 2001, we were actually capturing probably about 500,000 paper documents. So before we went electronic, we had something that was called the Shipper's Export Declaration, a yellow document which companies had to submit to the government before they moved their goods out of the U.S. So at a time, we were capturing, at minimum, 500,000 paper SEDs a month, which means we were capturing 6 million paper documents a year. We actually did a study on those paper documents, and we found that at least 50% of those paper documents had some type of error, some type of mistake, some type of omission, something left out. And again, in a paper environment, it's so much more difficult to go back and correct it, and the process was a lot more cumbersome. With the automated export system, now our compliance rate is only 1%. So again, when we talk about the entire circle of the trade data, if we are now offering a system that gives us improved trade figures, now the trade data that we're releasing will be more accurate. So not only does it ultimately provide U.S. businesses with a way to report this electronically, it also gives us cleaner data and it gives us more accurate information to provide to you and to provide to the government. This system also improves compliance for the exporting trade community because we have upfront error messages to let you know, hey, you've left off something that's critical to the shipment, and we let you know right up front. The response messages are normally returned within minutes, and again, it reduces reporting burden because once this information is reported to us, other agencies, again, such as Customs, such as State Department, such as Bureau of Industry and Security, they can see that information as well. In the old days, you would have to submit multiple copies of paper documents to the government, and then they would have to be split and then parceled off to different agencies. Now, AES, all that information is captured in one location. Now we're going to talk about AES Direct, a free online service which we at the Census Bureau developed in 1999. Again, as we were rolling out the automated export system, some companies said, hey, you know what, this is a little too much for me. I'm just a small company. I don't want to invest a lot in software and vendors, and this is just too much for me. So what we decided to create was what's called the AES Direct system. It is free of charge, and anyone can use the AES Direct. The website is listed here on the screen. It is at aesdirect.census.gov. Being that it is a website, it's available year-round, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And again, it allows exporters and forwarders the ability to transmit their information and receive their response messages back from us in the federal government to let you know your shipment's been accepted, you can move your cargo, or you have something that you need to fix. AES Direct is secure, encrypted, and again, it's all paperless because you're actually reporting your information online. So if anyone after this presentation is now considering, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start filing, AES Direct is a great alternative or option for you. A lot of companies also use, whether it be FedEx or UPS, and many of those companies interface into AES Direct, where actually you log into, like, let's say, for example, FedEx in particular. They actually have an interface into AES Direct where you key in your information to ultimately create your shipping order. And this graph here just gives you just a quick representation of how we have grown in AES and grown in electronic reporting. So again, back in 1999, we had 437 companies that were actively using the automated export system. In 2013, we are actually up to 51,000 companies that are ultimately using the automated export system. Actually, as of August, we have 53,000 filers that are actually using the automated export system. So again, just shows you the growth, how again, starting back in 1994, how we've come along. And again, companies are going to say, I can do my banking online, I can order stuff from Amazon online, I can get married online. I can find my wife, I was about to say my husband. I can find my spouse online, you know, so why not have the exporting process be something that's online as well, too? So again, in 1999, we had over 600,000 export shipments. So, and again, this just shows you again with the growth of exporting. In 2013, we had 1.3 million shipments, which were ultimately reported into the automated export system. So again, we see the growth in the automated export system, just showing you how technology is growing with exports. But then we also see how the nature of exporting is also growing as well too. And then the graph on the side will also show you that of the 50,000 companies that are actually using the system, 98% of those companies are using the free AES Direct system, while only 2% are using a self-filing system. Now, what's interesting is those 2% actually account for 45% of the value reported through AES, because those tend to be some of your larger companies, and they have their entire system integrated into AES, so their invoicing system, their logistics system. So again, it depends on what is best for your business. Now, the last few slides are just going to talk about our outreach efforts, and again, how what we're doing today in a short order, how we actually, again, provide training to you all, the trade community, just to learn again more about best practices and how to make sure you get it right the first time. We have a full-day seminar. It's called the AES Compliance Seminar, which we actually hold in both English and Spanish, depending on where we are. But again, it's a full-day seminar where we discuss the regulations, we discuss classifications, we train you on how you classify your product. We normally have someone local from the Customs and Border Protection area come out and actually do a training, and they talk about different enforcement issues that are going on in their particular area. We have someone from our Bureau of Industry and Security come out and talk about dual-use items, items that have both a civil and a military application to them, how those goods are to be reported. Then we also have someone from the Automated Export System branch talk about how you report in the Automated Export System. And one of the things that we do throughout this program is we also provide best practices. What are some recommendations that we've seen from the trade community? What are some tips that we've seen from and received from you all in the trade community to say, hey, here's what I do in my business. Here's what other companies can do to help them, again, get it right the first time. That's been a very, very popular program. Actually, we are in Dallas today. We're actually doing a compliance seminar today in Dallas. We're going to be in Savannah in December, and we're going to be in Milwaukee in the middle of December. So again, we're actually working on our 2014 calendar. So again, the information is on our website. Leslie, I'll send this to you. So if you guys are interested in attending a seminar, if we're in your area, I would definitely recommend either you or your team, or definitely other companies who are interested, definitely sign up. Another program that we have for companies is something called the AES Compliance Review Program. We actually reach out to companies that have a lower compliance rate than what they should have. We ultimately sit down, we meet with them, and we really go through their process. What do you do when you get an error? How do you fix this? If you get this mistake, what do you do? And again, we offer them best practices on how to get it right the first time. As you'll see on the screen here, we developed an AES best practices manual based on the compliance review program. Again, we met with high-performing companies, highly compliant companies, and again, we got their recommendations on how do they remain compliant, how do they remain so successful in terms of compliance. And we put together a lot of their recommendations in this best practices manual that is also available on our website. We also provide company training, again, where maybe we'll do a conference call if the company is local here in the D.C. area. We've driven to Philadelphia, driven to parts of Virginia. We'll just sit down with a company and just give them training on different things that they need more information on. And we also have webinars, which I think we'll discuss more in our next presentation. But as we're doing right now today, this is, in a sense, a webinar where we're accessing and we're using technology to ultimately provide training to people around the country where we don't have the funding to come out to Montana, but I really wanted to come to Montana because then I could check that off on the states that I visited in the U.S., but that's another story. So we can actually still reach out to you guys and actually provide this type of training to you through technology. Now, another thing that I just want to mention very briefly is the role of a freight forwarder. So again, we're talking about export regulations, we're talking about compliance, we're talking about rules and responsibilities. But you say to yourself, you know what, I'd love to export, I'd love to go expand my business because I can see the real benefits of exporting, but you know what, I make Christmas ornaments. I'm a coal manufacturer. This is what I do. I don't really know about the logistics of exporting. I don't know about all the different requirements. That's where a freight forwarder can assist you. The freight forwarder can help you with your export and shipping documentation. They can help you stay current with the different regulations and the different laws. They can help you get into those foreign countries because they are familiar with some of the import requirements located abroad. They can provide you with the tools and resources to help you identify your shipping costs. How do you classify? Are you exporting to a denied party? So in many cases, and again, they can perform those tasks that an exporter, maybe such as yourself, says, you know what, I just don't really have the resources. Again, I manufacture Christmas ornaments, and that's really what I do. That's what I'm good at. And I just don't know about all these other things. Well, that's where a freight forwarder can ultimately assist you. If you have questions about finding a freight forwarder, agency or an entity that we work very closely with, the National Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association, they actually have a network around the country where you can actually go to their website and you can probably find a forwarder right there in your area that can ultimately assist you. But again, a freight forwarder can help you take that next step to actually go abroad. And again, just closing up with more of the training tools that we have available. On our website, we have about 25 different training videos that we've developed that really cover the entire process, cover a wide range of the process for you in the export environment. We talk about the automated export system. Okay, what's a NAFTA certificate? Again, another government acronym. Okay, what is that, a NAFTA certificate? We talk about that. We talk about the role of a forwarder. We talk about licensing. We talk about regulations. And all of these videos are probably about 5 minutes. I don't think any of them are longer than 10 minutes. So again, it's a great way for you to go online, get some quick information from a short video, again, to learn more about the exporting process. We've already talked about some of the webinars, and actually this image right here in the middle, we just finished a series yesterday called the Go Global Webinar Series. So what we've been pretty much discussing within this hour time frame, we actually developed an entire webinar series focused on helping companies go global. So we actually cover topics on preparing your business to export. How do you find a market? How do you find buyers? What about trade financing? Hey, again, I manufacture Christmas ornaments, but I need financing to help me export. We talked about a wide range of topics. We talked about documentation and shipping. We talked about regulations. So again, it was an 11-part webinar series that, again, I think you would find very, very useful and helpful, and you can find that on our website as well. And then our last tool that we have is the Global Reach blog, where we ultimately put out information to you all, the trade community, again, about different matters that are coming up, the different things that we're going to be talking about. Our next blog, which we plan on scheduling today, is going to recap the webinar that we actually conducted yesterday. So it's a great way for us, the government, to reach out to you all, the trade community, and again, just give you information about compliance, about our trade data. It's just a great way for us to reach out to you all on different topics. And we have now reached the end of the presentation. Here's our contact information. If you have any questions, you can dial the 1-800 number, 549-0595, and then you can access the 4 different options. So if you want to learn about AES, the Automated Export System, you can select option number 1. If you want to know more about the site that Katrina was talking about for the Commodity Classification Assistance, you're trying to classify your product, you can select option number 2. If you want to learn about regulation requirements, you can select option number 3. And then if you want to really go more into detail on the data and, okay, I really like that USA Trade Online, I really like that tool, I want to learn more about the exports coming from Montana, maybe the imports coming into Montana, you can select option number 4 to access our data dissemination branch. And then you'll see at the bottom we've got the different email addresses where you can always send us a question if you all have any types of questions. Since you guys didn't ask any questions today, you know, maybe if you are interested in following up with the email, please feel free. So at this point, we're done. Do you guys have any questions or any scenarios that you've come across that you want more information on? Or is there anything that we can shed a light on that you all have any questions about? And now I can see you.
Yeah.
I put the webcam back on. Now I can see you.
Okay. Yeah, I guess they don't. They thought your presentation covered everything, I guess.
And Omari, I just want to make a statement, and for everyone else here, that whenever you contact the census, they usually get back to you within. I mean, it's been within hours, sometimes, you know, a day. So I know sometimes you can reach out to federal entities and wonder if you're going to get a response. They're always really good about getting back to you. So
I thank you very much. I appreciate that. Just to reiterate on that, our leadership here truly values customer service. That's, I think, why we are still able to do the seminars that we do, the outreach, the webinars, because our leadership really says, hey, you know, we want to definitely offer the best type of service. So that I appreciate you saying that, because you're right. So many people say, oh, they're the government and they'll probably call me back in 3 weeks, or, you know, they'll never call me back. That is really one of our major mandates here, to really follow up with everyone.
Okay, well, you're going to stay on the phone, right, and listen to Sarah's presentation, and then if they come up with any more questions, they can ask them then? Is that?
Sure thing.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Katrina, for helping out with the presentation. And I will go ahead and now unpresent you, Omari.
Okay.
did everybody get a handout?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we'll cover. Basically, I'll just start introducing myself, if that's okay.
Okay.
So,
this is Sarah.
I work for the Department of Commerce, so I work with Leslie for the Office of International Trade Relations, and we're here to help Montana companies export abroad. So, you know, if some of what you heard today, you think, gosh, what was that Omari said, you know, feel free, you can call me at any time. We can reach out to Omari or whomever on their team too. So, but what I wanted to go into a little today is to just kind of cover, I know they talked a lot about our exports, but I just wanted to go into a little more detail about Montana's exports in general, and a couple other presentation slides that I can show you of market research that is available to you too. So to start, I'm gonna grab my clicker here, maybe. That's okay. I'll just use. Oh, there we go. I think it was set up. It's okay. I can do the manual version here. Maybe. Here. Okay. So, anyways, as you look at the handouts that I gave you, we have a combined total export. Thank you. Okay. Let me go through. We handle other things besides export training as well, but my focus here is the export training. But we also handle Made in Montana programs, trade show assistance programs. We have a trade office in Japan and assist with protocol for the governor and whatnot. So if you are working with companies or they fall under these categories, just let me know. But I'm going to focus right now on kind of the handout that we have. And what I have at the top indicates that we had 2.49 billion in total combined export. So what that means is that we as the state incorporate bulk wheat exports into the overall total export report. Now this will be different from what Omari's team in the Census Bureau will illustrate, and these numbers here are actually what the Census Bureau reports as well. So, but because bulk wheat exports are such a huge export for the state, in fact, 75% of Montana's bulk wheat is exported, and so indirectly it's shipped to Northwest grain handling facilities in the Pacific Northwest, and so we can easily track that. It's eventually then exported abroad from there. So we feel that that's a really distinct commodity that we really need to capture. It's always our number one export. So when we say combined, that's what it means. But right here, just to kind of confuse you a little more, these numbers strictly are the Census Bureau numbers and figures. And so as you can see, Canada obviously is our number one export market, has been for a long time, probably will continue to be for various reasons, especially location. Last year alone, we exported 638 million, which was a quarter of all of Montana's total exports. So it's a significant market for us. Oftentimes when a new to exporter calls us, it's an easy transition to explore. Language barrier isn't really an issue as much. So with this figure alone, that represented 1.57% of Montana's overall GDP. So it really is a major market for us. We like our neighbors to the north. So the second top market for 2012 was the Republic of Korea. And this has actually been an up and coming market for the state of Montana. And in fact, up until 2008, it wasn't even within our top 5. So a lot of those exports are due to coal. We indicate mineral fuel exports, but more specifically, it actually is coal. So that's been a very significant country for us. And then third is China. And as Omari said, it's a significant market for everybody these days, as well as Montana. So it's been holding steady and increasing gradually since 2003. And then the fourth top market for Montana exports in 2012 was Belgium, which the majority of that was actually for pharmaceutical exports. We have a couple of large pharmaceutical companies in Montana, a couple significant diagnostic testing companies in Montana. And all these figures are aggregate totals. So that means that we receive the numbers associated with the commodity, but it doesn't indicate what company is doing the exporting. So we kind of have to use our best educated guess to kind of figure out who's doing what in the state. So, but the key point of Belgium actually is they increased 159% from 11 to 12. So significant jump, somewhat similar to Chile as well. So it's always interesting, it's Canada's a steady market. Lately, China and Korea have been pretty steady. And then after that, it's interesting to see what countries play out from year to year. So, okay, so now we're going to focus more on the commodities and products themselves. And these are actually tangible exports. So this doesn't include service exports. It wouldn't include tourism, which technically is a reverse export because of the foreign dollar. So these are actually products that you can tangibly touch. And like I said, bulk wheat is by far the top commodity, and that significant number is $915 million. So, I mean, it's far above our #1 export. I mean, that's why we capture that every year. We work with the Montana Wheat and Barley Committee to track those figures and add them to the rest of our totals. So that increased last year alone by 33 million, both because of the gain in value and in bushels. So farmers were happy, the state was happy. So the second top commodity is mineral fuel. And as Katrina, I think, pointed out, coal has become kind of the hot topic for Montana, and we are currently exporting them. Right now, a lot of the coal is going to Korea, some other countries as well. And then refined oil goes up into Canada, and there's a couple large oil refineries that are owned by Canadian outfits, and I think that's a lot of where that goes to. So this category alone has probably become a top big player since 2006. So it's a fairly new, larger category, but now it's a significant role in our state. The third category is inorganic chemicals. Well, gosh, what is an inorganic chemical? But silicon is one that we export. A lot of silicon goes into the solar panel industry. And then cupric oxide is an anti-fouling agent for marine paint. So a lot of companies that work with large ships, there's actually a company in East Helena that exports a large part of that cupric oxide. So this has been a steady category since 2003, and again continues to be one of our top. And a large majority of that is exported to China and the Republic of Korea. And the top fourth ranking category for 2012 was industrial machinery. So this has been a steady category since 1996. In 1996, a large majority of that category probably incorporated just that, industrial machinery, tractors, that kind of thing. But in 2007, that started to include manufacturing equipment for the semiconductor industry as well, which we have a large company up in Flathead that does a lot of exporting. Significant markets include Canada, the Republic of Korea, and Taiwan. And so year to year, for the most part, these will remain pretty steady. There's some up and coming growing industries within the agriculture sector and different things too. But as far as the top tangible commodities, that's what you'll find. So moving along, again about our wheat, we exported 117 million bushels to the export facilities. What Montana is known for is the high protein content within our wheat, within the Golden Triangle. And so, and I'm not an expert in this, but I know that different types of protein are better for different commodities. So pasta, for example, might like a certain protein level content, and then baked goods like another type of protein content. So because our wheat has such a high protein content, it's mixed in with other states' wheat that has less protein level content. It's kind of hard to say. And then it's mixed in at these Northwest grain handling facilities and then exported from there. So it's pretty an interesting, significant industry for Montana, for agriculture in general. And Japan, out of that 117 million bushels, Japan usually purchases about 50%. So roughly that's about 60 million bushels of wheat each year going to Japan. A lot of that obviously goes into the pasta. There's a Japanese-owned pasta manufacturer outside of Great Falls. They are in Great Falls because they wanted to be at the source of our wheat. So other markets include other countries in Asia, Taiwan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Indonesia. So it's a significant commodity, and hopefully I haven't paid too much attention, but I think the prices and the outlook for it looks relatively stable for this year too. So this is a brief overview of an overall total for Montana exports from 1999 to 2012. And the blue indicates the tangible goods, and then the red indicates the bulk grains, the bulk wheat. And as you can see in 2003 here, there was a steady incline of exports up until 2008, and everybody probably knows what happened after that. So we were hit by the market crisis. However, since that, we've been increasing, and since 2011 and 12, we've had 2 record years. I'll show you a brief example of where we are for August of 2013. It looks fairly, resembles 2012 figures somewhat, so we'll see. I don't have a crystal ball quite yet, but hopefully it should be a good outlook for our overall exports for 2013. And then I wanted to briefly show you, because Canada is such a big market for Montana, our exports to Canada it actually, here from my previous slide, it simulates that as well. So again, from 2003 on, we steadily increased until 2008, market crisis, and then we've been increasing ever since to hit the 638 million in 2012. And what is it that we're shipping to Canada? Well, the petroleum and coal products. So, and this is by NAICS, and again, Omari had indicated there's the North American Industrial Classification System, which is by industry sector. And so, petroleum and coal products, these are kind of more of the refined oils, so largely due to probably the Canadian-owned refineries. Motor vehicles, this is always kind of an interesting category. That actually, we believe, is personal vehicles. And depending on where the exchange rate is, I've heard that sometimes if it benefits the Canadian citizens, they'll purchase cars here, maybe export them and whatever. So it's always a top category. That also includes RVs, different things like that. And then here we have cement and concrete products, agricultural machinery, and industrial machinery. And I do believe a lot of that is due to the agriculture industry, but I also think it's partly due to the oil sands as well. So those have been a great category that have been holding steady. And then from there we have grain and agriculture products here. These have been up and coming export products. They've been increasing each year, and it's really good to see that for the agriculture industry. Here we have plywood, engineered construction products, oil and gas, engines and turbines. So kind of a mix. And then here we have just kind of a catch-all for everything else as well. So overall, this is kind of what it looks like for the most part for year to year to Canada. And again, it's a good neighbor to have.
I've got a question.
Sure, yeah.
I was in Home Depot when we got Flathead a while back, and I stopped with one of the guys, and they said that 75% of Home Depot sales in that area go to Canada. Is that included in those figures, or are those just people taking stuff home?
Those, it depends on how much they're purchasing. If, that's a personal consumption, and so it's not technically what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a commercial export. So the reporting requirements will be different only up until a certain threshold. And Omari, feel free to jump in if you need. But as a personal consumption, you're allowed so much when you cross back into the border. So depending on what the amount is that the individual's purchasing, that might not be reported. So for the most part, I believe that this is more of Montana companies that are shipping, exporting a commercial export up into Canada. I could be wrong, because there's actually a lot of, within the northwest region of Montana, there's a lot of Canadians that come down for tourism, for, we've had a lot of, even a small pasta manufacturer that says, wow, we get Canadians that purchase our product all the time. I think this is going to be a really good market for us. So, you will see that, but, and I don't remember what the exact threshold is for a personal consumption once you get to the border.
So from a data processing point of view, if you're Canadian, you went to Great Falls, you bought a bunch of stuff, and then you didn't put anything on your customs form, then it wouldn't show up in this, but
Correct.
if you did,
Correct.
it would.
Now, technically, from a customs standpoint, they're going to want you to report whatever it is.
Right, but I'm just simply saying that if you didn't write anything down.
Exactly, and the $2,500 threshold for reporting requirements is where like the Census Bureau requires that any export shipment that is $2,500 or more has to be reported. So those smaller shipments won't technically be reported. So, but it does capture, you know, most commercial shipments, I would think, I would hope. So, and with this, you know, I just wanted to, we work with Wiser Trade, and I'm just going to show you an example. Wiser Trade receives all of their U.S. import and export data from the U.S. Census Bureau. And then we also work with the Montana Wheat and Barley Committee and the National Agricultural Statistics Center to incorporate the bulk wheat figures. And then we work with our friends here at CIC and ourselves to put together the state export report, which usually comes out in the spring of each year. So at this point, because you guys are all data users, I want to show you, and for questions, I have a business card too, but you know, feel free if you guys are working with a company or you just have more questions afterwards to, you know, contact me at any time. But at this point, I do want to pull up.
If you just press escape, Sarah.
Thank you. A couple examples of, this is our Wiser Trade data. And so again, the, sorry, I cannot talk and type at the same time. So the export and import data for the U.S. is going to be exactly similar to what the U.S. Census Bureau has. It's fairly similar to what the USA Trade Online illustration is as well. And this is where we will derive all of our export numbers. We also can, you know, do a variety of things. And so if you guys have questions or you're working on a project, you know, let me know. We can help in any way we can. But a quick example of over here on the side, I'm sure it's probably hard for everybody to see, but this includes the US database, but then we also have Canada, Chile, Colombia, EU, China, Japan, and a Wiser World. So what we can do also is, as a good starting point for market research for exporters, is to you know, look at the data, analyze what markets are possibly saturated, use this as a road map of how you want to move forward. But then also with this, you can go into these other, let's say, you know, Chile is a great market for you. So then you can see who your competitors are, what Chile's importing, so you kind of have an understanding of, wow, well, maybe actually China's already in this market as well. So it gives you kind of a detailed analyzation with statistics of what you should look at and you know, where your products are currently going. So for this example though, since we're kind of focusing on Montana exports, again, we can go by HS numbers, which are the commodity classification, or the NAICS, which is more of the industrial classification system. But I just want to show you really quickly where Montana is year to date as of August 2013 with their total exports to partner countries. So just going to show this quickly. And since it's hard for you to see, I'm going to try to pull this up. And like I said, we are pretty close to where we were a year ago, August 2012. We're down by 3%, but you know, at August to December, anything can happen. So we'll see where we're at after that. But as you can see, Canada is our #1 market. Again, the Republic of Korea, Switzerland. Switzerland in the past, I'd need to look into this, but we have exported some coal to Switzerland, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's under that country exports. China's #4, Taiwan's #5. So somewhat similar to where we've been exporting. And like I said, we're 3% down from August 2012, which is actually pretty good. You know, anything can happen up from now until then. So that's an example of that. I just want to briefly pull in, as Omari said, the U.S. is one of the largest exporters in the world. And this will illustrate, this is under our Wiser World totals. And so this is all reporting countries. And I would like to illustrate how US is actually the number one according to year to date. These figures, which will be right here. The US is the number one exporter in the world. You know, falling very closely behind us is obviously China, Germany, and the Netherlands, and then the UK. So, you know, there's, as Katrina indicated, there's so many different variables, and you can look at so much information, and it's really helpful for whether you're doing market research for a company. You know, sometimes we have statisticians from the university system contact us. There's just a variety of different methods and topics and everything that you could ever imagine to help with whatever your project might be. So, and again, you know, here you could look at Colombia's imports and exports and a variety of tools. So with that, I also want to jump over the Montana Department of Commerce Census and Economic Information Center, i.e. Leslie, has worked with me, and we put together a really nice geographical map of Montana's exports. So when you go to their homepage, you want to go to Maps, and then they have featured maps. And once it comes up here, this is data that shows all of Montana's exports to partner countries. And what's really great is, you know, you can pull your cursor over a particular country, and for example, here's Canada. It shows the total exports for 2012. You know, and then it lists everything by NAICS categories, so petroleum and coal products are number one. But then also, if you're doing research, as you pull down, it'll have all the historical data from 2002 moving forward. So for a 10-year period, and it's actually, you know, it's just a fun interactive map. There's a variety of different things to look at. You know, here, let's pull up, I believe this is China. So, you know, again, basic chemicals are our top exports there. And then it gives us our total. And interesting enough, in 2002, we exported 5 million in total exports. And in 2012, we were up to 105 million. So, you know, it's a fun, interactive way to explore any type of export data that we have available. This actually will be updated as new figures come out. And as Omari said, this is by year. So the data that the Census Bureau puts out is on a monthly basis. So this will be updated once those final figures are out, which is sometime in the spring. So anyways, there's a lot of, yes, please.
I work for Plum Creek over
Right.
the Flathead. Our corporate headquarters is in Washington. We're exporting trees out of Oregon to China. Which state gets credit for that?
I would think whoever's filling out that export report that Omari was talking about with the AES, that kind of thing, my guess it's probably Oregon. And as that's a good example, because that brings back to the bulk wheat example. If we were to work with Omari's team and look at all the bulk wheat exports, technically Oregon and Washington are getting according to the Census Bureau, they're getting all the credit for the bulk wheat. And so your example is kind of exactly what's called an indirect export. And unfortunately, it's difficult to track indirect exports, unlike we can with the bulk wheat. You know, bulk wheat is shipped to one location. We know when it's shipped to this location, being exported, we're good to go. Cattle industry, you know, lumber industry, oftentimes if it's processed somewhere else, after it's processed, that particular state probably is the one that's filling out the export report, and then that state's getting credit for it. So it's a really good example of how the industry works, and you know, with certain products that are moved out of state before they're shipped to other locations, Montana might not always get the credit for it. That's okay. I mean, but go ahead, Amori.
If you wouldn't mind if I jump in, the way
Please.
we actually calculate ours is based on state of where it's beginning its journey to the port of export. We require in the regulations, so in a situation like that, if the goods were manufactured in Montana or built or grown in Montana, and then their journey to the port of export from Montana, then Montana would be shown as the state of origin. Washington would not be shown as the state of origin if the company is reporting that correctly. So that's how we define the address in our regulations.
Perfect.
Thank you for your question.
Does that help? But I know that you probably contribute to a lot of that Canadian, market segment and whatnot too. So it's always interesting. So does anyone else have any other questions? We kind of cut a little early, so feel free. If anyone wants to play around with these interactive maps, feel free. So
Do you guys have questions for Omari or Sarah? Anything else?
Well, I have one. You showed on, say, the example of Canada there, the amount for last year, and then you showed 10 years of history.
Mhm.
Is there any way to look at how the trends are changing for each of those segments over the last 10 years?
for sure, yes, we can look.
And how would I do that?
You could do that in a couple of different ways. You could reach out to myself and we could work together and pull up this, because the examples that we illustrated are really kind of a broad spectrum overview. When you kind of look and drill down into a certain market, you really can start to see the different trends over time. And I think Katrina might have said, I can't remember, they go back to 1996 or something. I mean, we can look over a 10-year period for sure. And once you analyze that, you can really see, wow, what is this trend for this commodity, or what's up and coming, and
Right.
and like I said, there's a couple different agriculture sectors that have been increasing quite steadily, and so just let me know.
I need to contact you to do that.
If you want. There's other sources available, and I didn't write
And isn't
this
it
down.
kind of the tools that Katrina showed and that
Correct.
you showed? That's
Yeah.
where you'd get the data. That's
Yeah.
where we got the data for the maps, but we just used total.
And so, like Katrina's, their data, you can get the free subscription for 7 days. Ours, we already as a state subscribe to, so you as a state citizen can contact me and we can work together. There's other sources out there, and I can provide you a link of that.
Great.
That's, I believe free of charge. Isn't that right, Omari? Are you still
Hold on
on?
for a quick second. We actually have a comment on that.
Okay.
So I heard that the question was about getting historical data potentially going back 10 years, and we definitely have that available on the tool that Katrina showed you on USA Trade Online. As well, if you were having issues with that, she already mentioned that you could get a free 7-day trial, but if you wanted help just navigating this site, you can feel free to call our 1-800 number, which is 1-800-549-0595. And you would want to select option 4. And then, of course, you can email us at std.data.dissemination@census.gov.
Perfect. Thank
What
you.
libraries in Montana is that data available in?
Excuse me?
She had said that that data was available at certain types of libraries, or any of those libraries in Montana.
Yeah, could you reiterate again what you mentioned about the public libraries, where all this information is disseminated from again?
Right, they're available specifically at federal depository libraries. They usually have at least a station or two computer stations that you could access this data for free. You just want to make sure that you know that your library is a federal depository library, which I don't know the site for them off the top of my head, but if you just type into Google federal depository libraries, it's like the first thing that comes up, and they have a map that you can search for libraries in your particular area.
That's good. I'm not too familiar with. I would like to say that the state library.
It tends to be a lot of like university libraries.
Oh,
Okay.
Usually.
Great.
Like your large public libraries tend to be federal depository libraries.
And if any of you here are, kind of wanting kind of more information on resources, exporting in general, we have a basic guide to exporting book That's free of charge. So if anyone here wants that, let me know. I'll run downstairs and grab that. And it covers everything from the export reporting process, different resources available to, how do you price your product, that kind of thing. So it's more for, the actual hands-on exporter, but if anyone wants that, please let me know. So be happy to run down and get one for you. So.
There are 12 libraries in Montana, and most of them, they're all at universities,
Huh, interesting.
and the state law library.
Is there any in Helena?
State law library.
State
Oh,
law
state
library
law,
has it.
okay.
St. Lucie, Kootenai, Montana Tech, Fort Peck, Fort Belknap, U of M, Carroll. Carroll has one.
Oh, Carol.
Good to know.
So the community
Great.
college built that.
And it might be possible, I don't know for sure, but a lot of things you can get through interlibrary loan, if you know exactly what you want, the library here might be able to get it from one of the depository libraries.
Right, exactly. So a variety of different ways, if you get lost and forget,
Love the
call
internet.
me and, yeah, I know.
Google.
Do my job without
Here's the
Google.
answer.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Well, I just want to thank Omari and the Census Bureau team. That was a fabulous presentation, and we'd love to have you in the future anytime you want to come out. So,
If you need to check Montana
Yeah.
off, let us know.
so
Yes, thank you very much.
cool. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And then we are going to take a break real quick. And Amari, you guys are going to leave us, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
All right.
Thank you so much
Right,
for
yep.
all your help.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are a little bit early. We were supposed to break at 10:15, but I think we're going to still go until 10:30 so we don't screw up the schedule. So we will see you guys back in about 30-ish minutes. There's a lot of time. There's actually a library. Oh, yeah.